Hello viewers and welcome to another commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present you with a game between Parker Ince as well as Guy Lev. And as both of our players decide whether or not they want to keep their opening hands or otherwise take a mulligan, this is going to be an exciting preview video featuring some of our upcoming Boundless Hate, recently spoiled Orc faction cards. We've got Nazdreg on the top, and we've got Baharroth, played by Parker, on the bottom. It looks as though our players have yet to decide whether or not they want to take a mulligan, but one of our new units is the Frontline Ardboys. It's a 4-cost Orc with 2 command icons, 2 attack, 5 hit points, and it must be declared as the defender if able. So when it is sitting at a planet, it's going to be able to sponge up attacks, kind of on behalf of all your other on behalf of all your other units. Guy indicates he's going to keep his hand, and while Parker is deciding, we can see a couple economy units here. We've got the Rogue Trader, we've got the Lieutenant unique unit from our core set, Crush Face. He happens to decrease the cost required to deploy Orcs to his planet by 1. We've also got some utility cards. We happen to see Teleportapad as the first play of the game, so it's a support. It doesn't kind of show anything in regard to what Guy is intending to do with his economy units, but just as a combat action, he can exhaust that support to use it to move any Orc faction unit to the first planet specifically. We've got a copy of Nazdreg's Flash Gits, the signature army unit that can do multiple attacks in one round, as well as an Evil Sun's Warbiker to attack for 4 at the same planet as a Warlord. On Parker's side of the table here at the bottom, we've got some new cards and some classics. We've also got some signature cards in his hand. We see the ever-popular Bealtan Guardians played out to planet number 3, a nice 2-command icon unit there, and now we see that Rogue Trader for Guy put out to planet number 5. We've got a Wild Rider Squadron, so a 4-cost unit, but 3 attack, 4 hit points with a command icon. Combat action is to move it to an adjacent planet. If we end up seeing a copy of the Deathly Web Shrine, that's a kind of nice 1-2 combo, which could result in the exhausting of some of these enemy Orc units. Baharroth himself is a 2/6 warlord, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. He just has the mobile keyword. We've got a copy of the Banner of the Ashen Sky. It's his signature support. It works akin to a Catachan outpost, but it's Eldar specific, and we also happen to see a Cry of the Wind. So at any point that an Eldar, any unit moves from one location to another, we can see Cry of the Wind used to augment that by 1. So Baharroth deployed commit to planet number 3, could mobile to 4, and then Cry of the Wind to 1, and the same thing goes with 4 and 5. So he could, cover anywhere on the board. And Wild Rider Squadron also has a nice wide threat range here. We've got a copy of the Frontline Ardboys put out to planet number 1. Note, planet number 1 is going to be Taurus. That's a fantastic opportunity for if you've got a low unit count, as currently do both of our players. If you win a battle at that planet, it's going to be either 3 resources or 3 cards for you, and nothing for your opponent. Planet number 2 is going to be Atrox Prime. You pick an adjacent planet or the enemy HQ, and you deal 1 point of damage to each unit present. So it's a nice threat to vulnerable, weak, low HP units. If your opponent is pushing the first planet very hard, that's a fantastic opportunity to punish him or her as well. Both of our players pass, and now a couple things to keep in mind is let's see. Currently, we've got Parker winning command on 2 different planets, and the same thing can be said for our Orc players. So in regard to wherever Nazdreg goes, he confers Brutal to any units at his planet, any friendly units. It's very important that they get wounded. The Frontline Ardboys here have a reservoir of 5 HP. Looks like Baharroth is going to show up to planet number 1. Nazdreg instead is going to go to planet number 3. I was going to mention planet number 3 is important to Nazdreg because it's Iridial, the healing planet. Note that our first 3 planets all happen to have red material type icons. In fact, our 4th planet does as well. So this could be a very quick game indeed. We'll have to see how things end up being broken down here. But Baharroth is going to be able to deny the command of the Frontline Ardboys, and the exact same can be said for that Bealtan Guardians there. Nazdreg completely counters those 2 command icons. The only difference between these warlords is Nazdreg is going to be able to kill off the Beltane Guardians, whereas Baharroth is probably going to use his mobile keyword to shift to Aatrox Prime, as opposed to killing this frontline Ardboys, or at least attempting to, because if Nazdreg, like if the frontline Ardboys start taking damage, Baharroth has the initiative, Nazdreg can, thanks to the teleportapad, move to the first planet, potentially give it brutal, and then that would just be a monumental amount of damage dealt out to Baharroth here. But looks as though in regard to total economic command phase income, Parker ended up with 2 cards, 2 resources. Glaive Guy instead got 1 card and 3 resources. We've now got a trio of 2 command, 2 resource Vashya Trailblazers in Parker's hand. He's got both copies of Cry of the Wind, so one of his units could mobile and then move 2 additional planets, and he's also got the Prophetic Farseer for the following round. So this is new as of Decree of Ruin, and it's a pretty stellar opportunity to just kind of deplete your opponent's deck of some of its existing shields. Our Orc player has another copy of his teleportapad, and he's also got a fantastic ability to really kind of wound our Phoenix Lord Warlord for deploying heavily 2 or lower cost units at blue technology icon planets. So Sowing Chaos can affect planet 2, 3, and 4 presently. It would be able to kill off the Beltane Guardians. It could kill off any number of, like I said, 2 or lower cost units. Note that Nazdreg himself is not immune to that effect. Looks as though Baharroth uses mobile to shift over to planet number 2, and this is pretty interesting. We could see teleportapad. It was exhausted there. It would be able to move Nazdreg to the first planet, but I guess that would be an opportunity for, Nazdreg. Like, if he were to shift over to the first planet, we could see Cry of the Wind used to move it to Aatrox Prime, and then between Baharroth, between the Wild Rider Squadron, that would have been a fantastic opportunity to just bloody Nazdreg to bits there. So at the present moment, we've got 3 units controlled by our Orc player. Looks like he's going to manage to win Taurus entirely uncontested, but he's not going to be able to trigger the ability associated with that planet. But at the same time, he did pick up a red and a green icon, and that puts him all the closer to victory. We have Aatrox Prime, which is going to be entirely uncontested, won by our Eldar faction player, and that's either going to be a point of damage dealt out to Nazdreg himself or directly to the frontline Ardboys. But considering we've got, Iridial as the planet where Nazdreg is present, something tells me that a 2/7 is going to manage to kill a 1/1, and that means Iridial is going to be able to, pull all the damage off of Nazdreg, or had it been the frontline Ardboys, it wouldn't have made much of a difference here. But we're going to have combat break out at planet number 3. That's going to be Nazdreg taking, I guess, Nazdreg is going to retreat. So that is a pretty interesting little effect there. Looks like I erroneously removed 1 point of damage off of Nazdreg, and very interestingly, Nazdreg decided to retreat. I guess he didn't want to leave himself exhausted, just so that the Wild Rider Squadron would have been able to use its mobile to shift over, but very interesting play. I wonder, I guess, it must have been just so that Nazdreg could avoid taking a bunch of damage. I guess had he killed the Beltane Guardians, he didn't really have much in regard to shields in his hand, so he could have taken 3, he could have swung for 2, and then he could have... I guess it would have just been far too much damage, too much risk, even though Nazdreg probably could have won that battle, potentially killed off that Wild Rider Squadron. I guess Guy must not have been willing to take that chance. But in any case, we've got an HQ phase having come and gone. That's going to be our initiative token bouncing from Nazdreg to Parker, our Baharroth player. That's 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. We've got Banner of the Ashen Sky. Whenever a unit moves from one planet to another, you just exhaust this support here, and just like Ketachan Outpost, it gets an ephemeral +2 attack bonus for its next attacks. That works great with the Wild Rider Squadron. It works with Baharroth with this Vashya Trailblazer, and our new planet number 5 is going to be Barlas, the random card discard planet. So We see a couple interesting cards added to Guy's hand. He's got another copy of Rogue Trader, just to generate as many resources as possible, and he also possesses a copy of one of our upcoming Boundless Hate Orc cards. It's the Ramshackle Truck. So for the cost of 5, it's an elite vehicle, 7 attack, 2 command icons, 3 hit points, but while it's at a planet and the initiative has, the opponent has initiative, then it's going to be getting a +4 HP bonus. But of course, if it takes 3 points of damage, you go into your headquarters phase, you're going to be essentially left with a dead unit, but it is fallback eligible at least. Note, Baharroth does have the initiative token, so anywhere that Baharroth is and Nazdreg is not, the Ramshackle Truck will not have initiative, and at the moment it wouldn't have initiative regardless. We've got Crush Face played out to planet number 1, and we also happen to see that copy of the Ramshackle Truck, and that means that it's going to be played basically for 4 thanks to Crush Face here, so pretty reasonable savings, and the truck itself is going to be a 7/7 unit so long as Nazdreg is not present. Nazdreg can show up wherever he wants, drop off the frontline Ardboys during the command phase, and then a teleportapad can shift Nazdreg or shift the frontline Ardboys to the first planet, and if, you're moving the frontline Ardboys, you're going to be protecting your other units from attacks, and if you're moving Nazdreg, then those same units are going to be getting brutal. But we've now got a trio here of Vashia Trailblazers at planets 3, 4, and 5, and I'm just going to be very curious indeed to see how things break down here. Parker has 1 resource, 5 cards, relative to Guy's 0 resources and 5 cards. We came across a copy of the signature attachment here for Baharroth, so it's a relic. You just affix it to any mobile unit, and then whenever that unit declares an attack, you simply declare it against a unit at an adjacent planet instead. So let's say if Baharroth shows up at planet number 4, instead of killing off a rogue trader, he could attack a unit at planet 3 or planet number 5, or well, I guess that's really his only option at the moment. And again, Baharroth has a really wide threat range thanks to Cry of the Wind, which can also interfere with Teleportapad because it's going to be moving units from planet to planet. But Baharroth himself is going to show up at planet number 5. Nazdreg is going to touch down on planet number 4. And this is pretty interesting. Nazdreg is going to be able to reel in quite a few resources thanks to trumping this Vashia Trailblazer here. The earliest possible victory condition we could see for Nazdreg, presuming he wins Aatrox Prime, is going to be Iridial, but there's quite a bit of opposition set up at that planet, so he might try to win through Yvarn, or if instead he's bound and determined to try to win through green strongpoint icons, he could potentially win at Ossus 4, but it might just be more of an opportunity that he's taking to try and deprive his opponent of as many resources as possible, and then use his teleportapad to reposition himself to the first planet when need be. So I'll be very curious to see how things end up winding down. Guy himself came across 1 card, 4 resources. We're currently waiting on our mobile keyword, and Parker got 3 cards and 1 resource. So Parker currently does have 2 resources in total. He's got a copy of Nullify, Gift of Isha. He came across another copy of Wild Rider Squadron, and I'm kind of concerned at this point that we're going to see a lot of first planet bullying done by Nazdreg, and we've got a copy of Doom here, which, Baharroth could easily use to destroy all the non-unique units in both players' HQ, if that just so happens to be an appetitive option during our upcoming command phase. But looks as though we see Cry of the Wind used, and this is going to be pretty interesting because we not just see Baharroth moving to planet number 4, but we also see the Wild Rider Squadron moving from planet 2 all the way over to planet number 4, and at some point we could see the teleportapad used to remove Nazdreg from that problematic situation, or if Nazdreg does stay and fight, if he manages to kill off this Wild Rider Squadron, we could see Gift of Isha return it to play, so it looks as though this is going to be a very difficult fight indeed for our Orc faction player to win, but looks like he's going to win that battle at Aatrox Prime, really without too much trouble trouble at all. Cry of the Wind, the second copy of that signature event exclusive to Baharroth, is going to be expent as a shield to preserve the Bealtan Guardians, to keep accruing additional cards round after round. But that is going to be another red material type icon, and that means that if our Orc player manages to take Iridial or Yvarn, then the game is going to be his. Otherwise, it's going to be up to, Guy to win 2 green strongpoint planets. So we've got Banner of the Ashen Sky, currently indicating that the Wild Rider Squadron got that ephemeral bonus, that temporary attack boost for its next attack upon using its combat action to move. So we're going to see a battle here break out at Ossus 4. Note, there's no longer a first planet for Nazdreg to escape to. So let's see how things are going to break down in regard to attacks. The Wild Rider Squadron is going to have to pick the frontline Ardboys prior to any other target, and unfortunately it is going to be exhausted. So this Vashya Trailblazer is attempting to destroy the Rogue Trader, but I believe that's going to be... so I've got to take a moment to remind our players of that. So let me turn off caps lock there. But anyway, the Vashya Trailblazer's hand is going to be forced into directing its attack at the Ardboys first. And looks like that is going to be our order of operations here. But now the Wild Rider Squadron is going to take an attack for an augmented 5. Our Orc player only has a 1-value shield card in hand, and that means no matter what, the Ardboys are going to be destroyed. So either we're going to see Nazdreg retreat or just kind of hang around long enough to not really do anything. I'll take a look, but yeah, it's just 2 copies of Cry of the Wind in Baharroth's discard pile, so Gift of Isha isn't going to be able to recur anything into play to deal additional damage to Nazdreg should he end up exhausted, but I can only imagine it'll be the no, it's okay. So I guess, of course, Parker has no way of knowing this, but it's essentially going to be wasted damage. In Baharroth being exhausted prior to the Wild Rider Squadron, it's, just throwing away damage because the Ardboys would have been killed, and then Baharroth could have better spent that attack value hurting Nazdreg, but normally you would expect your enemy to at least have like 1 2 shield value card, but in any case, I guess maybe mathematically it would have been better to work in that order anyways, but Nazdreg is going to take a swing at Baharroth. Note, Iridial is still on the board, but it's not going to be activated this round. So Nazdreg takes a swing, does manage to deal out 2 points of damage to the relatively elusive Baharroth. And now it's going to be that copy of the Wild Rider Squadron. All it can do is attack the frontline Ardboys. It doesn't have the option to retreat or anything like that, so it is forced to take that swing of 5. And of course, knowing full well the contents of Guy's hand, there's not going to be anything he can do to kind of prevent that attack, so that's going to be our new Orc unit destroyed, but it definitely did save Nazdreg quite a bit of damage. Whether or not you feel that was worth 4 resources, I'm not quite sure, but let me know what your thoughts are in the comments in regard to the frontline Ardboys, the ramshackle truck. Looks like Nazdreg and the Rogue Trader are going to end up retreating at the end of combat, and that is going to be the battle won by Baharroth. So he bounces from the planet. Parker gains a resource. Guy is down a resource. Both of our players are going to be hitting 7 resources going into our HQ phase, and they're each going to be drawing 2 cards, which is going to be putting them at 8. So this is where things get pretty interesting. Note that Baharroth's HQ is not suspiciously devoid of units, but it is indeed devoid of units. We could see a Doom used to kill off the truck, to kill off the Rogue Trader. Crushface as a unique unit is going to be immune. Baharroth and Nazdreg, of course, are going to be entirely unaffected, but note that the initiative token is now in Nazdreg's hand, and that means that this ramshackle truck, if it ends up at a planet and there's no enemy warlord there, then you will have initiative, and then it's going to be a 5-cost, 7/3 unit. So it's a fantastic threat to Baharroth, but with that mobile keyword, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to pin him down. But In assessing Parker's hand, he's got another copy of the Bealtan Guardians. He has an ion rifle. There's no ambush platform in play, but he can dramatically increase the attack value of one of his units. He's also got a copy of Nullify in case we end up seeing some sort of nasty orc event. We do have a copy of the signature support for Nazdreg. This is Cracktooth Hall. As a combat action, you basically pick a planet and you move 1 damage from a unit you control to another unit at that planet. So I suppose you could use that to, augment a unit with the brutal keyword, but more often than not, you're going to be using that move damage to just straight up kill off some of your enemy units without them having any opportunity to respond. We've got a copy of Nazdreg's Flash Gits played out to planet number 1. Normally, you'd think this is the kind of play followed up by a promotion, or maybe you just want to, send your warlord to that planet, but of course, note that planet number 1 is going to be the victory condition of our green skin player, and if Guy can end up deploying enough powerful units at this planet, he might be able to, basically prevent our Eldar player from winning the game. Something that definitely sucks here for Parker is he's run out of copies of Cry of the Wind, so his Wild Rider squadron is not going to be able to move to planet number 1. Looks as though Parker is definitely lamenting in our chat log that he doesn't have enough combat stuff. He is going to be able to use Doom to kill off the truck, to kill off that rogue trader, but Crushface is going to be showing up. We've got that copy of Teleportapad, which we could have Nazdreg go to, say, Barlas to deny this card bonus of his opponent, and then he could move to planet number 1. Note that our Eldar player doesn't even have a big nasty army unit sitting in his discard pile to bring into play with a Gift of Isha, but we do see a copy of Bealtan Guardians put into play at Planum. Guy himself has a couple additional options. He's got this Ravening Psychopath. Taking a real quick look across the board here in regard to Sowing Chaos's efficacy, we've got a Bealtan Guardians at a blue planet. We've got a Vashia Trailblazer at a blue planet. We also have a Bealtan Guardians at a blue planet. For the investment of 2 resources in a card, you could essentially deny your opponent a grand total of, let's presume somehow this Bealtan Guardian wins. That would be 2 resources and looks like 2 cards. But, if those planets were more valuable, then that would be doing all the more work. And of course, cards like Borkon Recruits, all sorts of things like that are 2 or lower cost units, but we've got that copy of Cracktooth Hall in play. We could see Nazdreg's Flash Gits attack, then they could deal themselves a point of damage, then we could see Cracktooth Hall move that damage onto this Bealtan Guardians in order to kill it. We've now got a copy of Wild Rider Squadron, and this is going to be very important. Note, we did not see Doom played. Instead, we've got this Wild Rider Squadron that's going to be able to opportunistically shift into planet number 1, and if it ends up dead, 2 resources is going to be more than, it's going to be exactly enough to play a Gift of Isha, but Glaive Guy just keeps these plays coming. He's now got a copy of the Evil Sun's Warbiker, which is going to be attacking for at least 4, alongside Nazdreg. Baharroth, I can only imagine, is going to be showing up at planet number 1. If that were to be the last planet of the game, if he's bloodied, it doesn't really matter. He's going to be a 2/4 unit sitting at that planet fighting alongside the Wild Rider squadrons, sponging up attacks. Doom, of course, is a deploy action, and it looks as though both of our players are deciding where exactly they want to go. I can only imagine that Nazdreg is going to be going to planet number 1, and Baharroth is going to be showing up at planet number 1 indeed as well. So the ramshackle truck is not, in this case, a 7 hit point unit. It's a shame that Nazdreg had so many units in tow, because he could have gone to a different planet, let his opponent gain initiative, and then use Teleportapad to move to the first planet. So it looks as though our players are trying to determine command, and we've got War Master Sam Mann in here. I guess saying something to our players. So Yeah, I guess Iridial is not going to be any card for Guy, and then this is going to be planets 2 through 5, won by Parker, so he gets a total of 3 cards and 4 resources, but how much of this is relevant to combat? Absolutely none of it. We've got the Deathly Web Shrine, which is going to be a support, which means it may not see play during this game. After you move a unit you control from one planet to another, you exhaust that support to exhaust a non-elite enemy army unit at the same planet as the unit has just moved to, but the Prophetic Farseer isn't going to be doing anything for Parker, and the same thing can be said for the Warlock Destructor. So the only combat relevant cards here are going to be Empower, which Prince does have enough resources to pay for, but he's only got 2 units present to actually benefit from that, so that's a 2 shield value card. It's also, the Shining Blade could serve as a 3 shield value card, but Empower only affects Eldar, and Gift of Isha similarly is only going to be affecting Eldar units. So we might see the Wild Rider Squadron shift into this planet and then see Empower played, or we could just have Parker save it as shields, but in any case he's going to have to overcome what our Orc player has, and our Orc player does have 1 shield card. So the priority is going to be removing Nazdreg from this planet relatively early, just because, Crush Face has got 3 hit points. That's relatively durable. The Flash Gits have got a fair pool of hit points. The Ramshackle Truck itself is going to be hitting really hard, but, Nazdreg is still a 2/6 at present himself. So there are a lot of different threats for Parker to try and decide how he wants to get rid of them, and Cracktooth Hall at any moment would be able to kill off one of these units. I guess if we knew that Empower was going to be used, there'd be no time like the present to use Cracktooth Hall to kill off that copy of Bealtan Guardians. So it looks as though that first action window is now gone. We've got the Evil Sun's Warbiker is taking a swing for 4 at Baharroth. We've got his signature attachment, the Shining Blade, discarded, so that's only going to be 1 point of damage dealt out to Baharroth successfully. I guess if that would have been shielded with only, say, like a 1 shield value card, then we could have seen Cracktooth Hall used to finish bloodying Baharroth, but let's see how things are going to get broken down here. I guess Guy indicates that he's done. I can only imagine that means no actions. Parker is currently thinking. I would presume we're going to see Empower at some point, and then Gift of Isha, but when we want to see the Wild Rider Squadron moved in is going to be a little bit of a tricky thing here. We could see the Vashya Trailblazer attack, and then we could see the Wild Rider move in, and then Empower, just because it's only going to affect, Empower is only going to affect the units you have sitting at that planet at the time that it is played, so the Wild Rider Squadron's going to have to show up, but, once it does, it becomes eligible to receive attacks, and our Orc player still potentially has 3 attackers thanks to the Flash Gits here, so a damn shame that the Teleportapad is going to be a 2 resource, invested waste of time at the moment. And then I guess I'll just be curious to see if Cracktooth Hall ends up making a tremendous bit of difference. We could have seen a Ravening Psychopath played instead, but I guess, it's going to be up to both of our players to decide what they're going to do. We're currently waiting on a little bit of thinking. Okay, looks like that is it. The Wild Rider Squadron moves in, so are we going to see the Empower now? I can only imagine that we will, because otherwise you may as well just save the combat action of relocating that unit for later. So we're currently waiting on seeing if there's any kind of combat action for Guy. Nothing he can possibly do strikes me. There's the Cracktooth Hall, and that would be, the time is now. Yep, so there you go. I guess what I wish we would have seen would have been 1 point of damage from Nazdreg to kill off the Bealtan Guardians, and now, because that didn't happen, it's going to be a 2 attack, 2 hit point unit for the duration of this conflict. Baharroth is going to be a 3/4, the Wild Rider Squadron is going to be a 4/5, and that's the Evil Sun's Warbiker is going to be taking a point of 2, well, a possible 2 damage here, so Banner of the Ashen Sky a little bit bit late to the party, but the banner activates. I guess the Wild Rider Squadron is going to be augmented up to 6. I guess if this were an extremely strict, non-proxied tournament, you could certainly disallow your opponent from benefiting from that support, but of course this is just a friendly game. The entire purpose of this was to try to test out some of our upcoming Orc faction cards and see how Baharroth fares with some of these late-breaking Decree of Ruin additions. But we've only got one shield card for our Orc player, and it looks as though he has decided to just allow that Evil Sun's Warbiker to be destroyed. It was erroneously placed at the bottom of our Orc player's discard pile, but that's not going to make any difference whatsoever. And it's now going to be our Orc's opportunity to attack. So he's got to do something, because otherwise he is going to take a monumental amount of damage from some of these Eldar faction units. And if Parker can manage to successfully defend this planet, then he'll be able to get one icon of each kind. If he can take Yavharn as well, and then end up taking Ossus 4, that's going to be the game for Parker. So this Wild Rider Squadron is potentially going to be able to attack for 6. That would kill off this copy of the Ramshackle Truck, and between all of these persistent units, that could just spell a complete nightmare here for Baharroth. But we've got the copy of Nazdreg's Flash Gits that are going to be threatening 2 points of damage, so we see that Doom discarded. That's only going to be 1 point of damage dealt out to Baharroth, so because of Empower, he's still got 3 hit points remaining, and now it's going to be our Eldar player's opportunity to take a swing. So the Wild Riders, I can only imagine, are going to be killing off this Ramshackle Truck at some point. Maybe Baharroth and the Vashya Trailblazer will try to do that. The Wild Rider Squadron might try to kill off this copy of Nazdreg's Flash Gits just because they've got, a 4 hit point reservoir. And unless Guy had a copy of Cyborg Body in his hand, since there's no custom field generator in play, there's absolutely nothing he can do to save the life of Nazdreg's Flash Gits, even if he were holding on to a 2-value shield card. And there we go. That'll be the Wild Rider Squadron taking a swing at the Nazdreg's Flash Gits. Baharroth and the Vashya Trailblazer are going to be able to deal out a combined total of 4 to kill off the Ramshackle Truck. And, that wouldn't work had our Orc player been in possession of more than one single-value shield card. But it's looking like it's going to work out just fine, and it looks like this is going to be a pretty close match, but it's definitely going to go to our Eldar player at this planet, and my concern is that there's nothing Nazdreg is going to be able to do from just having his back broken upon this mountaintop here to kind of recover, just because the economic stranglehold from his opponent is so incredibly powerful. But is Nazdreg going to take a swing, or is Nazdreg going to retreat? There aren't any dead Eldar units, I believe. Nope, so there's still no dead Eldar. There's no target for Gift of Isha. Nazdreg himself is going to take a swing of 2 at Baharroth. If Baharroth does not shield against that damage, he won't be bloodied until the termination of this battle, but he will be bloodied when the battle concludes there. So another complicating factor that, of course, Parker points out is this Cracktooth Hall. If Baharroth is left with 1 hit point at any point, the Cracktooth Hall can simply shift that point of damage off of Nazdreg onto the opposition, and then Baharroth is going to be removed from that planet. He won't have the opportunity to kill the Ramshackle Truck. If the truck itself can take a swing, it could be a convenient answer to that Wild Rider Squadron, but in any case, we've got a copy of Gift of Isha used up as shields, and even though that probably doesn't feel the best to get rid of that powerful event, it is going to spare Baharroth from taking any additional damage. So now it's going to be the opportunity for our Eldar player to attack. We could see the Vashya Trailblazer deal out a point of damage to the Ramshackle Truck. We could see Cracktooth Hall pull that point of damage away, and then Baharroth could take a swing. Then we could see that shield card discarded. That would only be 2 points of damage on the truck, and then at the very beginning of the combat round, it could take a swing for 9 and kill off the Wild Rider Squadron. Then it's going to be up to Crushface and Nazdreg to beat the Vashya Trailblazer, Baharroth, and this 2/2 Bealtan Guardian. So combat is incredibly close, but here we see, I guess, okay, yeah, so Glaive Guy indicated wait. He wants to use a combat action, and very wise indeed, because otherwise this definitely probably would have cost him the game, but that Cracktooth Hall is going to be able to pull the point off of the ramshackle truck there and move it onto Baharroth. So Baharroth now takes a swing of 3. That's going to be Sowing Chaos discarded. So at the moment, the truck has a whopping 9 attack value, and our Eldar player is going to be entirely out of units. He no longer has any combat-relevant events. He's got 2 1-shield value cards, and now we're going to be going to the onset of the combat round here. So Prince is saying he didn't have to gift because he's got 7 HP in total, but if he did not gift, if he just would have used Nullify or something like that, Baharroth still would have been at that threshold where things would have been looking pretty grim regardless. But you can't change the past. I guess Baharroth cannot afford to retreat any units from this planet, because were he to do so, that would be him losing the game. Guy has the initiative. He's going to be able to attack first. The ramshackle truck is going to take a swing, and it looks as though Parker is calling out GG, so I don't know if our players are actually going to finish this game, but if Parker is conceding, that would be the ramshackle truck killing off the Wild Rider squadron in a single swing. Looks as though Guy is calling out to finish playing the game, but if I were to kind of surmise how this would wrap up, it would be the ramshackle truck taking a swing, killing off the Wild Rider squadron. Baharroth would end up doing something. He could potentially kill off Crushface. Nazdreg could try to kill the Bealtan Guardians or the Vashia Trailblazer. This is going to be an incredibly close match indeed. Without running through the mathematics perfectly myself, I guess things are looking pretty grim for our Eldar faction player, but it's not completely hopeless. So the truck is going to end up killing that Wild Rider squadron. Now it's going to be Baharroth's turn, my apologies. He's going to take a swing at Crushface. Crushface is going to be killed. Nazdreg can take a swing. He can either threaten to kill off the Bealtan Guardians, which is going to be unsuccessful thanks to Nullify or Ion Rifle, or he can guaranteed kill the Vashia Trailblazer, but again, that's kind of unknown. To Nazdreg, all he has to go off of is that Parker is calling out GG, so does that mean that there's no 2 shield value cards? Does that mean that there are no shield cards whatsoever? So Parker continues to lament the discard of Gift of Isha. He's got 3 resources. That would have been a fantastic opportunity to bring that Wild Rider squadron back into play. Looks as though Glaive Guy is playing relatively conservatively, so Guy kills the Vashia Trailblazer. The Bealtan Guardians swing for 2. They kill off the copy of the ramshackle truck, and now it's going to be Nazdreg acting first. He's going to be able to take a swing here at Baharroth. So Nazdreg can at most deal 1 point of damage to Baharroth. Baharroth is going to be at a single hit point, but he'll swing in return for 3. Nazdreg will be at 4. The Bealtan Guardians will swing. It's looking like this fight is actually going to end with the Bealtan Guardians being the lone remaining unit. But let's see if I did my mathematics wrong while I'm in the middle of commentating. But Guy's got the initiative. Nazdreg is going to be able to deal 1 point of damage to Baharroth. Baharroth will stick around. Baharroth is going to bring Nazdreg to 4 points of damage. Then the Bealtan Guardians brings Nazdreg to 1 hit point. Then we're going to see a new combat round. Nazdreg will bloody Baharroth, but then the Bealtan Guardians are going to be able to successfully manage to bloody Nazdreg, and then the Bealtan Guardians are going to be able to kill off that copy of Rogue Trader, and the Bealtan Guardians are going to be left standing as the only remaining unit at that planet. So it looks as though that GG was called out a bit prematurely by our Eldar player. It's almost as though Greg Idra Fields were playing on the bottom of our screen here, what with the premature GG calling, but just let that be a lesson to you viewers and myself. Don't give up before you've actually been beaten, because if we were to concede a match here and then things would have gone, radically different, boy, would my face be red. But in any case, this is going to be the beginning of the combat round here, so Nazdreg is going to be able to take a swing, but we've got that copy of Ion Rifle, which I guess isn't actually going to need to be discarded. So Nazdreg is going to take a swing. That will be a bloodied Baharroth, but there's still plenty of opportunity for our Eldar player to come back and win this one, so long as he can take Yavharn and Ossus 4 or regardless, any combination of planets really, he could definitely win this one. So Baharroth is a 1/5 warlord. When bloodied, isn't going to be doing much, but Nazdreg is bloodied. He's now just a 2/5, so both of our players are going to be very susceptible to assassination, and especially considering we've got things like Wild Rider Squadron, that could be a fantastic opportunity to pin down and potentially kill Nazdreg. Unfortunately for our Eldar player, the Wild Rider Squadron is not going to be... Oh... Okay, so wow, that is a hell of a move there. That is something I completely overlooked. So Nazdreg was sent bloodied from that planet. But check this out. I guess Parker is a little bit better player than I am, and Guy most definitely is. So Nazdreg was bloodied, but there, the teleportapad of course is going to be able to return Nazdreg to that planet. So Nazdreg with initiative is going to have the opportunity to swing for 2, and instead of using that ion rifle, we simply allow the Bealtaine Guardians to be destroyed. So wow, that was a hell of a game. So GG indeed. Guy did eventually win, so I guess maybe that's what Parker had in mind in the first place. I can't help but think that probably was not how things were going to end up, at least in Parker's mind, but that was an incredible match. You know, good game, very well played by both of our players. Congratulations to Glaive Guy for a hell of a match, but that was absolutely fascinating. So what an incredibly close final battle indeed, and I'm definitely very glad that I was recording this one. So viewers, I really hope you enjoyed this very unconventional match. Such a bizarre turn of events at that last planet, but I'm very glad we played this out to the very end there. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this game, and you know, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button, because the more incredible matches people stumble upon like this one, the more people might give Conquest a try, like what they experience, join our community, and of course, the more of us send a message to Fantasy Flight Games, the more likely they are to continue to support this product for months and years and years and years and years to come. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Facebook or on Twitter. And if you'd ever be interested in having me, you know, kind of record, commentate, spectate some Octagon matches of your own, get in touch with me. If you'd like to send in actual tabletop live camera recorded footage, I'd be absolutely honored to receive that, as well as, you know, now more than ever, I'm going to be relying on the community to keep my outpour of content. But if at any point you'd like to give back to the Hive Tyrant to support this channel, I'd be absolutely honored were you to make a contribution to my Patreon. But once again, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.